Okay, step one, getting the strap connectors prepped. I'm going to take a piece of my double-sided tape, right down the center. And this is not in the pattern. This is just something I do when I feel like it's necessary based on the materials I'm using. And this is vinyl, is a great vinyl, but it's a tiny bit stretchy, just a little bit. And since these are going to be bearing the weight of everything in the bag, I'm putting a little bit of waterproof canvas down the center as well. And that is just to help with some of that stretch over time, because the waterproof canvas is not stretchy at all. So hopefully that will provide a little support there. Okay, so I've got my tape and waterproof canvas down the center, and now I'm folding inward like that, and cutting that in half. So I have my 2 strap connectors. Okay. Next up, I'm going to take 1 strap connector and fold this over. Now in the pattern, I explain how to do this. You can just use a regular strap connector if you want, just like that. Just baste it in place or clip that and use it just as is. That would be fine. I like to disperse the bulk a little bit by taking it and pulling the 2 outer corners of each side so that they're meeting in the middle, and you've got something like that. Okay. And then I take my scissors just so that placing the strap is easy when I go to place it on the piece that it's going on. I'm just going to cut from corner to corner a straight line, just like that. And that just is going to make that easier to find the right spot for it. Okay, it's a little crooked there, but that'll do. All right, same deal here. This is totally optional. It is in the pattern, but it doesn't affect the bag at all if you just want to use regular strap connectors and not do that step where you pull it over. So here we go. Outer corners are now meeting in the center, and I'm clipping from corner to corner a straight line, just like that. Okay. And there we go. Yep. Okay. Okay, trying to do this where it's visible for everybody to see. I have my back flat piece here with the top curved edge up here and the bottom straight edge here. You're going to place your strap connectors 7 1/4 inches up from the bottom and 1 inch over. So I'm going 7 1/4 with this just right about there. And then I'm just going to use my ruler to place it 1 inch over. I'm going to use a little bit more tape just to hold that connector in place when I go to place it. So let's get that paper off of there. I used a little too much, so I'm going to bend that in a little bit. There we go. Okay. There we go. And 1 inch over. Just placed right on top of that edge there. Okay. Just like that. And then we're going to stitch that in place and then do the other one. I'm not going to place them both because I just want this to stay put where it is. So I'm going to do this first. There Okay, starting out close to the hardware. And then turning and just stitching around the entire thing. Okay. And you do see a little of the split in the raw edges there, but that will be covered when you place your zipper. So no worries there. Okay, I'm going to place the other strap connector. Seven and a quarter up. And 1 inch over. Okay. That tape on there. Can't really see what I'm doing here. Is that actually 7 and a quarter? Yeah. And 1 inch over, just like that. And then I'm also going to just make sure that I'm lined up. Just another little check. Okay. All right. These are so small, these connectors, that I barely have room to do one stitch down the side. There we go. Okay. Okay, that is stitched into place, and you should have something that looks like that with the two connectors 1 inch in from the sides and 7 and a quarter inches up. And the next thing we're going to do is prep the zipper window. So you need your zipper overlay pieces and some tape right down the center there for both of those. Okay, let's fold that in. Okay, just a word about the zipper overlay. I like them with the fold, like with no raw edge, but this is vinyl, and if you're using vinyl, you can always just choose to use an overlay that has a raw edge and avoid this step completely, because some vinyls are hard to fold and keep folded. So if that's your vinyl and you want to, I think this overlay piece turns out to be, after folded, 3/8 of an inch. And you could just cut two pieces. Yeah, it's 3/8 of an inch. Two pieces of vinyl that are 3/8 of an inch and wide, and just use those and stitch them on just like I'm about to, without the fold, just with the raw edge exposed. Vinyl overlays have raw edges all the time. It's not a big deal. The reason I'm doing it this way is because, one, I like the look of the fold, getting rid of the raw edge on it, but also if somebody wanted to use fabric at this point, then they could, which is the case for most of this pattern. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to take my 7-inch zipper. Make sure it's your 7-inch and not your 6-inch. They're going to look similar. I don't have a pull on it yet. I don't need a pull on it yet. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to start, stitch this onto the bottom. Now, if I did have a pull on this, I would make sure the pull was to my left and I was looking at the bottom. But since I'm putting the pull on afterwards, I can make whatever part I want the bottom. So I'm going to say this is the bottom. The pull's going to be over here. And we're going to stitch this onto the zipper, just lining up those edges, the outer edge with the outer edge of the vinyl. And I'm just going to clip it in place rather than tape because we're using a lot of tape. So I'm just trying to avoid having too much under the needle if I can. So we'll clip it. If your machine can handle multiple layers of tape, feel free to just run another piece of tape along the zipper and stick it on that way for stitching. Okay, so now that's on there, and I'm going to stitch along the edge of the vinyl that is closest to the zipper teeth. I'm top stitching, and I'm staying along the edge that is close to the teeth. Trying to keep those edges lined up. Okay, so that is the bottom overlay attached to the zipper. It's hard to see with black, sorry, but that's the bottom overlay attached to the zipper. Now we need our clear window, and you're going to make sure that you're looking at the clear window with the 7-inch across part facing up. So it's a little bit, you want to make sure that the zipper and this top edge are matching in terms of their size. And then you're going to turn your zipper over so you're looking at the back of it, right? With the overlay on the bottom. You're going to turn this over. And you're going to attach that. And I'm saying it's about 3/8 of an inch up, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch up from the bottom edge is where the zipper is where the top edge of the vinyl is, the clear vinyl. A lot of people will want to tape at this point. Okay, am I going to tape it? I probably should, but I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, use some tape if you need to hold this in place. I'm just going to go for it. Okay. Again, if you're uncomfortable with that, doing that without tape, just tape it, it's fine. But that is the clear window attached to the bottom of the zipper. Okay, so we have our other overlay piece here ready ready to go, prepped and ready to go, and we're just going to put it on the top edge of the zipper. Again, your pull might already be on the zipper, that's fine. I just find it's easier to stitch this with a straight zipper without the pull on there yet. And the first thing you're going to do is stitch it close to the teeth again, just like you did the first time around. And you should clip it. I'm not going to, but you definitely should clip it in place if you feel like, you know, you need to keep it where it needs to be. I'm just going to kind of adjust it as I go. Okay, the top overlay is now on. So I'm just going to take this completely off. Scary, maybe a little, but it's fine. Is that good? Yeah. There we go. Okay. So now my pull is on and both overlay pieces are on, and I have to still stitch this top, and I'm going to be doing that when I get to the part where I'm stitching this on here. So now I'm going to just line this up so that it's along the bottom. Edge of the main piece. And I'm just going to make sure that zipper's closed. Okay, we are ready now. I have this lined up just with the bottom edge of the main piece, and we're going to stitch along the top edge of the zipper overlay now to stitch this in place. And it's going to stitch over, you're going to end up stitching it right over those connectors, which is fine. Okay. There you have it. So now you have a window here. I'm going to baste along the bottom to keep that in place. Okay. And one extra thing that I'm going to do that's not in the pattern, but it's just because I put the pull on after the fact, so this is separate. I'm going to just make sure that my zipper is nice and closed over there. Okay, there you have it. I'm going to take this pull, move it to the middle. Later on, that's going to be helpful to have it there. And now I'm going to attach the bottom contrasting piece, if I can find it. There it is. Okay, take your bottom contrasting piece and line it up with the bottom edge of your back flat piece, right sides together, as the pattern says to do. Clip in place to hold. And now you're going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Across that bottom. Out of the way. that out of the way. We just need that in the next step. Okay. That is that. All right, that's 1/4 inch seam allowance there. Gonna open this up and then top stitch, keeping the seam allowance pointed under the bottom contrasting piece, and just top stitch along that bottom contrasting piece. Okay, we are now moving on. Now, I did actually not mark my magnetic snap yet, which it says to do in the pattern. So I need to go ahead and do that before I move on. I have my front exterior piece here, and I need to know where that magnetic snap is going to be. So let's do this. Let's find our magnetic snap. Okay, I'm going to use hopefully something I can see. I already have a hole poked where the snap marking is there. Okay, yep. Right there. I'm going to go ahead and just make my marking on here now before I go any further. Using my washer, right? Okay. Okay, so if that's where my magnetic snap is going to go, then I want to make sure that that is placed there. It is. Okay, so that's where my magnetic snap is going to go. Then I want to make sure that that is opposite this bottom edge, so it's facing up, so it's up here. So right sides together, line up those edges, clip if you need to. I'm not going to clip this one, it's holding pretty well on its own. And 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and now we're going to clip those. Open that up, flip it, and keep the seam allowance under the bottom again, under the contrasting bottom. So I'm actually going to turn it this way. It seems to be easier for me for some reason. So I'm pointing it this way so that it's under that bottom accent piece. And I'm going to top stitch there. Just fold that so it's not getting caught on stuff. Okay, all right, magnetic snap is marked there for our next thing, which is to attach the magnetic snap to this part. So we actually need our scrap of Decoville typically don't actually adhere it because it's vinyl and I really don't want to take an iron to it if I don't have to. But I think it's helpful to have there even when it's not actually pressed on, just to add a little extra support. So here are my magnetic snap markings. I'm going to go ahead and do that. This one gets the female magnetic snap. Can you see what I'm doing here? There we go. It is hard to see with this darker fabric, but okay. I'm going to attach the stabilizer, and then I'm going to attach the washer. All right, right there. Now, before moving on, if you wanted to put a label on your bag, I find that the labels look nice on this top flap area, centered. You could do that. I'm not going to put a label on this one, but if you wanted to, that would be a good place for it. And you should do that now before you move on, because the next steps are going to involve the lining and then putting the bag together. So you want to do that. Okay, let's place our magnetic snap on the lining. I'm using the snap marking just to place a mark where the snap should go. And I'm actually going to trace down there, cut some of that excess off. I didn't cut this very evenly. There we go. Okay. All right, magnetic snap, same deal. You're going to mark it here. Maybe I can get it to stay put. There we go. And on your scrap, okay. And then you're going to use a seam ripper and you're going to place the male snap through those slits. There it is. Like I said, sometimes these darker fabrics, it's really hard to see anything. Okay, so that's the male snap there. I'm gonna just do the same for this. And then I'm gonna place the washer. Okay, that's attached there. And now we're ready to attach the card slots. So okay. Now, if you're using waterproof canvas, which I am, then this is going to be your go-to. You're going to use 1/4-inch leather tape and just fold down one long edge, 1/4 inch. If you're using fabric that can fray, then you're going to use the alternate instructions for that in the pattern. Okay, I'm folding down 1/4 inch. This would be the same if you were using vinyl as well. I did one where I did, I had a tester do this, and I also did one myself where I did vinyl card slots, and I liked that a lot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half just to get an idea of where the center is. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to fold my main piece in half, so I have that center marking. And then I believe I said 6 inches down. Okay. Let's top stitch this. See what's going on here? Top stitching down that folded edge. Okay, and then measuring down 6 inches from that top. I need to go this way so I can see where 6 is. Just make sure you can see too. I don't know if you can see this. Okay, so about 6 inches down and matching those folds. That's 6 right there. Okay, and they should be centered because you matched up those folds. And now we're just going to stitch the card slots on. All around the outer edges. We're still centered, making sure. There we go. Okay. We're of course back stitching when we start and stop, especially on card slots because you want them to stay put as people use them. Okay, so right now what we have is a slip pocket. We're just going to go right down the middle. And the card slots are now attached. And we're moving on to the zipper pocket. Okay. Here. There you go. And then I did already mark the zipper placement using my pattern as a template. You can't see it because it's in pencil, but it's there. I'm going to fold that. Actually, I'm going to fold it. I'm going to fold it this way. I'm going to fold it to find the center, the vertical center. Make a nice fold mark there so I can see it. And then I still have my fold mark on here, so that's good. I'm going to place my zipper 1 3/4 inches down from the top there and centered. Okay. And then we're going to start. We're going to stitch just along the long edges of that zipper. We are still, yeah. turn and stitch the other long edge. Not the short edges, you can leave those alone. Okay. Nipping all my threads. Oh, I got that stuck in there. No good. All right, I stitched along the 2 long edges. I'm gonna fold this just so that I can get a nice cut started down the center of this rectangle. That just lets me get a nice little slit in there, and then I'm going to use that to get in there and just do a slit down the center until you reach about a 1/2 inch from the edge, and then you're going to do your triangles or your V's. Okay, so I did it into that edge, and now I'm going to go do this edge. My V straight up to the end of your stitching, but not through it. Okay. All right, there you have that. And now we're going to take our pocket, and this was obviously, I didn't say it out loud, it says it in the pattern, right sides together with the main piece. And now we're going to take this and we're just going to pull the entire zipper piece to the other side, which is a little bit hard to do with waterproof canvas. It gets a little stubborn, but you can do it. If you're using a cotton, you press it at this point to help it sit right. I'm just going to finger press those seams a little bit. Pull this out this way. There we go. And the same goes over here. I'm just going to finger press these seams a little bit. Okay, now we have this window with no raw edges for the zipper. So you're going to go ahead and grab your zip. Okay. Grab your zip and put the pull on it if you haven't done that yet. Okay, and the pull needs to be inside the window. You can do something like that there. And now we're going to top stitch around that window. Line that up. Hey, get inside that window. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to stick this right under the foot and adjust it there so I don't have to move it later. At this point, a lot of testers tell me all the time, you should mention that you should use tape in the pattern. And I can't, in good conscience, say to do that because every time I use tape to try to attach a zipper this way, it makes it worse, not easier for me. So, I don't know. Some people find that it's easier to use some tape, double-sided tape to place that zipper. I find that it still ends up shifting around, especially if you're using waterproof canvas. It just doesn't hold very well, and then you're just fighting with sticky tape and trying to keep it placed. So If tape works for you at this point, go for it. If you're like me and you just want to adjust it as you go, do that too. Place that in the right place and then move it this way. Doing a little back stitching there just to kind of give that a little extra support, and then going this way. These pulls, they're like so floppy, they end up behind the window. I just don't want that to happen. So there we go. One more here, and then all right, I'll come back around the other side. Okay, the zipper is installed, and now we're just gonna fold up that back pocket to make a pocket. A lot of times in patterns, we, just gonna cut that excess off, hang on. We use the zipper to turn the bag, but in this case we're not. So just fold it up. There's no need to cut it or anything like that. We're just gonna close it. We're gonna start on one side, then go up the top or across the top, and then down the other side. Just pulling the main piece out of the way. Making sure that zipper's pull is not in the way either. Okay, there we go. Pull that main piece out of the way. And your zipper's installed. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pull this to the center, not because you need it open necessarily, but because when the pull's in the center, it's not in the way of the seams when we're trying to sew this whole thing together. We are to the point where we're going to attach the exterior and the lining together. Okay, we're stitching around this entire thing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but the opening, the part that we leave open at the bottom, I folded the edges downward a 1/2 inch to start with. And I'm gonna start now, instead of starting a 1/2 inch in, I'm just gonna start right at the edge there and stitch down. And that's gonna give me a nice easy edge to close later on. You can do it this way, or you can do it the way, just start a 1/2 inch in and then fold it down later. It's totally up to you. Again, make sure your zipper pulls are in the center so that you're not running over any pulls. You're sewing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance for this step. Going slow, making sure that I don't run over anything. Keep adjusting that. That pull is over there. Slow around the curve if you have to. I know I do. Pull that off. I need to fix that. Again, double checking that through. Let me get this. Huh. That is weird. Sure that. Oh, that's my pocket. Okay. That's just the pocket zipper. That's okay. There's no pull there. Pull's in the center. And over the fold. We're stitched all the way around. We're going to take pinking shears or just clip some triangle snips, or some, you know, just snip in there around the curves if you want to. I'm pinking shearing around the top flap area, okay, to help that sit well. I'm not really, I guess we can trim down a little bit. And trim down the seam. That'll help a little bit with both. Okay. And now we're going to turn this through that bottom opening. This part, how easy or difficult it is definitely just depends on the materials that you chose. But right when you get to that clear vinyl, it's going to get a little stiff, and that's okay. You're just going to work with it, push it through. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing here. It's really hard to turn the bag up in the air where the camera is. So you're really not supposed to pull the bag when you're turning, but I find that I have to at least sometimes give it a little help there, just to kind of get that vinyl unstuck, and then I can keep going. All right, I'm going to poke out that curve as much as I can with my hand, and then I'm going to go get I'm going to get my chopstick so I can really get in there with it. There we go. Okay. Get my chopstick now, and really just poke that out. Okay. Now that folded edge at the top there that you folded down, you can just clip that because that's going to get sewn shut. Okay. All right, so things that you shouldn't concern yourself with that look a little weird now is like you'll see your edges sticking out of your card pockets there, but that's going to be in this within the seam of the gussets, so that won't look bad. And there's still plenty of room for your cards after the gussets are sewn on. And the next thing you're going to do at this point is top stitch around this top edge and close the opening. All right, first things first, let's do the top stitching around this top edge. I do not start right at the zipper so I can avoid that bulk behind the foot there. I'm just going to start right wherever it's easy enough to put the foot down, just like that, for instance. And then back stitch when I start and stop. I'm going to fold this up so it doesn't end up going and hitting something over there. Take these off now. Okay, and I'm just going to stop right about where I started on the other side. Make it nice and even. Okay, so that's what your top stitching should look like. And then you're just going to close up the bottom. I'll trim that thread a little bit. I'm going to make sure this is nice and even. There we go. I think that I'm going to need into my pump jumper. Okay. Closing up the bottom. And we're ready to do the gussets. Okay. At this point, you could actually like see the shape of the bag. And fold this up, fold this down, attach the snaps. See that everything is nice and even. Hopefully everything is nice and even. Okay. So there you have it. There's the shape of your bag. And now we are going to go ahead and get the gussets done. Okay. These gussets were it was hard to find the most accessible option for most people with their machines. And I know a lot of people don't like binding, but it's such a small amount that I decided that binding would be the best option for this. So you're going to fold your gusset in half, right sides together lengthwise, okay? And all you're going to do is stitch a 1/2 inch at the top and bottom, 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top and bottom. I just need to Okay. The material that you choose for your gussets really is, it's very important to choose something that you think your machine's going to be able to handle, because not all machines can handle vinyl. I've done vinyl, I've done waterproof canvas. I think if you really want to be successful on this bag with a domestic, your best bet is to do like a thinner gusset. Okay, so that corner where I have it folded, I'm just snipping the corners to take off a little bulk, and excuse me, and then I'm turning this way. I'm going to use my chopstick again just to give that a nice sharp corner edge there. Okay. And I'm going to top stitch the short edges. Oops, that's not really all that sharp, is it? I'm going to top stitch the short edges and baste the long edge that's open shut. So the short edge there, top stitch, turn it. I'm making sure that this is, there we go. With like an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Don't get too far in, just baste it shut. Top stitch along this edge. Okay. Okay, so that's one gusset done. And we're gonna do, oops, let's trim that. The same thing on this one. So you're going to fold it in half, stitch it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance on just the short edges. Okay. And now I'm going to snip that corner, the folded corner where I sewed, and turn. Get a nice crisp corner there. And a nice crisp corner there. And we're going to top stitch one short edge, then baste along the open edge. Here we go. And then top stitch the other short edge. Again, trying to stay close to the edge, like an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Baste it shut. Oops, a little too far there. And then, oh, no. Okay, and then top stitch along this. Okay, now we have our gussets and we are ready to attach them to the bag. So take your bag, take one of your gussets, the folded edge here, unstitched edge, you're going to have along the outside of the bag. You're going to match up the bottom edge, or I guess this would be like I guess you'll call this the bottom straight edge of the main piece. You're going to match those two bottom edges up, pin that in place, and pin this entire thing in place. Or I should say clip in place. I always say pin. What I mean is clip. Okay. Make sure that that's right. That's right. Okay. Okay, that's one side clipped on, and you should be, again, flush with the bottom there. And then this edge should come up just below your zipper overlay. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So folded edge, oh, what happened here? Folded edge, chalk, flush with that top or bottom. It's the top now that I'm holding it this way. And you're going to clip that in place. Just like that. Let's see that I didn't quite trim that well enough. Trim that off. Okay. Now, assuming everything was cut and stitched properly, you should be lining up at the top here. These two things should be even, and these two should be flush, and we should be ready to stitch these down. Okay. Here we go. We are going to stitch. I'm actually going to start on this side, on this bottom straight side. And we are going to stitch the gussets to the edge here with about an 1/8 inch seam allowance. It's like your top stitching. You, here, I need to... There we go. Use a hump jumper if you have to. Already mine is stuck. I am stuck. There we go. Okay. Keep your zipper pulls in the middle again. Those edges lined up. As you come to that bottom accent, you're going to have some bulk there. You can hand crank if you need to. Use a hump jumper. This is the bottom accent right here that I'm sewing over right now. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, there we have it. That's good. That's one gusset stitched on. Okay. Looks like that. All right. And now we're going to do the other one. Don't have any option here but to start up here, so that's what I'll do. I don't like starting up here because that zipper overlay kind of gives me some bulk in the back, and it's hard to keep going, but this is what we have to do. So. I'm just going to hand crank to start, just to make sure that I don't get stuck, because I have a tendency to get my vinyl stuck. There we go. There we go. Again, this is the bottom. See that? Look what I did. That was the bottom overlay piece. Be careful on that piece with the bolt. Mine got a little stuck there. Okay. Make sure that that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Yeah, you gotta be really careful, because that can cause problems, that the bulk of that piece. Okay. So now both gussets are stitched in, and we are ready to, we are ready to fold this bag upward with the lining side out and the gussets out like wings. Okay. Line them up. Those edges there. Now you can probably start to really get an understanding as to how important it is that you chose materials your machine can handle, because you're going to be stitching. If this were vinyl, this might be a little hard. I did it with vinyl, and I did it several times, and it was okay. I also did it, various versions of it with vinyl on the outside, like, and using vinyl lining combination. But really, this is going to be the easiest for most machines. So you've got the wings out there like that. And before I put the binding on, I'm just going to stitch them shut, because that's just going to make applying the binding easier. So I'm going to base this shut with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, just to hold it in place. Same thing over here. Keep it, you know, an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Keep it close to the edge, because you don't want it to show through your binding. Okay. There we go. Okay, guys. All right, it's time to bind. We're gonna get our strip. You can make it anything longer than 7.5. Okay. Okay. All right, I've got my binding bent over, clipped over there. It's too long. Obviously, I'm going to be clipping it down when I'm finished. That's just going to make things easier. If you wanted to be fancy, you could finish the top and bottom short edges of this binding so there was no raw edge. I'm not going to do that. When you do this, you might want to make sure that the back is a slightly wider than the front, so that you're sure to get through the back of it when you stitch along the front. And you're just going to stitch along the edge, the raw edge of the binding, to sew this into place. Beans everywhere. Just make sure that it is up against that edge there. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, I'm just going to trim my binding down now. Careful not to clip into your gusset. I'm going to trim my threads. And that's what it looks like, and we're going to do that on the other side. Once again, I'm lining up the top edge with the top of the gusset here, and I'm going to make sure that one side is slightly wider than the other when I fold this over. That's going to help me make sure that I actually stitch through the back of it. And I'm clipping this into its place. Okay. All right. Right along that edge of that binding. And this is going to be the least bulky way to get these gussets in. The easiest on your machine for sure. Okay, still running, right? Yeah. Trimming my binding down again, being careful not to trim through my gusset. Just trimming it down close to the edge of that gusset. It's gonna have a raw edge, that's okay. If you don't like it, you can always fold that ahead of time and make that a finished edge, but you don't see it in there, okay? So now that the binding is on, it looks nice and clean, and we're ready to turn this bag the other way, right side out, okay? Pulling those gussets. Oh yeah, there you go. Let me trim a couple of those top threads there. But that is where it's at. Okay. Guys, you are, except for the strap, just about done. You've got these beautiful gussets that were super easy to install. And we are now ready to do the strap. I'm just going to come through with my lighter and just singe the ends of some of these threads. We are done. We'll get that strap fixed up and then, or done up, and then we're done. I'm going to do a separate strap video that I can just refer you to. So you go ahead and refer to that strap video. I'll link it when it's done in this video so that you can see it. But this is it. It is done. It is beautiful. It is convenient. It is easy. And enjoy.